Welcome to mtwisdom. Did you know that only about 5% of seniors over 70 can still do these 5 things? They may look simple, but they quietly predict who lives longer and lives better. These habits aren't magic. They're just forgotten. Let's uncover what they are, and more importantly, what happens when you still can do them. Let's begin with something so basic that most people don't think twice about it until they can't do it anymore. Jane is 72. 2 months ago, a minor fall left her frozen on the ground. "I couldn't get up. I crawled to a table," she recalled. Her confidence was shattered not just by the fall but by the helplessness that followed. Today, she calmly lowers herself to the floor, sits cross-legged, then rises again, without using her hands, knees, or grabbing a chair. No panic, no pain, just presence and control. It might seem like a small act, but in the world of aging science, this one motion is a powerful predictor. A team of researchers in Brazil conducted a study of over 2,000 adults aged 51 to 80. They introduced something called the sit-rise test. Participants were asked to sit down and then rise from the floor using as little support as possible. The findings: those who needed multiple points of support, hands, knees, assistance, had twice the mortality rate in the next 6 years compared to those who could perform it smoothly. Why does this matter? Because this simple movement calls upon multiple systems at once. It taps into your lower body power, especially your thighs and glutes. At the same time, it demands balance, coordination, and a stable core. And let's not forget the flexibility it takes in your hips, ankles, and knees just to move with ease. As we age, any decline in one of these areas silently raises the risk of a fall, still the leading cause of injury-related deaths among older adults, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Jane didn't accept her limitations. She began training her legs gently, wall sits, slow squats to a chair, stretching her hips every morning. She placed a yoga mat in her living room and made it her ritual, just 5 minutes a day. She even bought that mat at a decathlon in her neighborhood in Spain. Within weeks, she began to notice change not just in her body, but in her mindset. "I'm not afraid of the ground anymore," she smiled, "and that changes everything." Want to try? Sit cross-legged on the floor carefully and then try standing up. Can you do it without using your hands? If not, that's your body gently telling you where to focus next. The goal isn't perfection, it's progression. Because the ability to rise says a lot about your ability to live freely. Before we move on, let's take a step back and look at something we often overlook, but do 3 times a day: eating. At 68, Maria moved from Chicago to a sun-warmed village in southern Italy. Her first step toward better health, changing her plate. Gone were frozen dinners, packaged snacks, and fast microwave meals. In came tomatoes still warm from the market, grilled fish seasoned simply with lemon and herbs, olive oil so fragrant it needed nothing else, and fresh greens served with joy, not guilt. Her doctor called it the Mediterranean way. Maria? She calls it the reason I feel 10 years younger? And the science supports her. In Spain, a landmark study followed over 7,000 seniors for a decade. Those who adopted a Mediterranean-style diet rich in plants, healthy fats, and natural sources of protein had dramatically lower rates of heart disease, memory loss, and physical decline. They didn't just live longer, they lived better. So what makes this style of eating so powerful? It's not just what's on the plate, it's the lifestyle behind it. Meals are unhurried, shared, colorful. There's olive oil instead of butter, fish instead of processed meats, nuts instead of chips. Wine, if any, comes with food. Vegetables and legumes aren't a side, they're the center. Maria didn't change her life overnight. She began by swapping white bread for whole grain. Then she added a handful of almonds during her afternoon slump instead of cookies. One week she tried roasting eggplant with garlic and lemon instead of microwaving frozen pasta. Slowly, her energy returned. Her digestion improved. She slept better. And perhaps most importantly, she enjoyed food again. The beauty of the Mediterranean way is that it's not a strict diet. There are no calorie counts or cheat days. It's about quality over quantity and pleasure without guilt. It's also about community. Food isn't rushed, it's honored. It's a reason to gather, connect, and slow down. Just imagine your next meal: grilled salmon with a tomato cucumber salad, a drizzle of olive oil, and warm lentils on the side. Maybe a few olives. Maybe a cup of herbal tea after. Nothing complicated, just real whole foods, enjoyed at a table, not in a rush. Sometimes the smallest choices add up to the biggest changes. that plate in front of you, it's either building resilience or slowly wearing it down. So if you've been eating mostly beige, try bringing back the color, the crunch, the nourishment. And don't do it alone. Host a simple Mediterranean night once a week. Invite a friend or neighbor. Share a new veggie dish. Laugh a little. It's not just food, it's medicine. But more than that, it's joy. If you know someone, a parent, a friend, a neighbor who could benefit from this simple change, please share this video with them. A small action from you might help someone eat better, feel better, and live better. We've moved, we've eaten, but there's one more thing your body craves to stay truly alive: connection. When Tom moved from the US to Berlin at 74, he imagined adventure. But reality set in quickly. The city felt unfamiliar, the language foreign, and the days increasingly quiet. He wasn't sick. He wasn't injured. But something was off. A sense of being unseen, like the world was moving past him. Then one rainy morning, he wandered into a small cafe and noticed a simple sign: American Expat Coffee Morning, Tuesdays at 10. Curiosity won. He showed up. And that 1 hour, just chatting about baseball, jazz, and where to find decent peanut butter, sparked something. He didn't realize it that day, but it marked the beginning of something deeper: healing through human connection. Within a month, Tom was laughing more, sleeping better, feeling sharper. He had something to look forward to again. His experience is far from unique. According to the National Institute on Aging, strong social connections reduce the risk of early death by up to 45%. That's a greater protective effect than quitting smoking. And yet, nearly 25% of seniors report feeling lonely most days. What makes this form of loneliness so dangerous is its silence. It doesn't show up like chest pain or a fever, but it slowly wears down the immune system, weakens the heart, and increases the risk of cognitive decline. And it often begins not with isolation but with life changes, retirement, relocation, losing a spouse, or even hearing loss that makes conversations harder to follow. But here's the hopeful part: the antidote to loneliness doesn't require a grand gesture. Just 10 minutes of genuine interaction each day, whether it's a phone call, a walk with a neighbor, or sharing coffee with a friend, can start reversing its effects. Tom now leads that very Tuesday group. He calls it therapy, with a pastry on the side. And when you watch him now, shoulders relaxed, eyes bright, you see what connection can do. So if you've been feeling like the world has grown quiet around you, know this: it's never too late to step back into it. We've seen how movement and connection shape a longer life. But now, let's turn inward to something quieter, more personal, but just as essential: keeping your mind alive. Susan used to feel sharp until she didn't. It began with small slips. A name at a dinner party she couldn't recall. A familiar word on the tip of her tongue that never surfaced. At first she laughed it off. Senior moment, she'd say, but inside the worry grew. When she started skipping social events, not because she didn't want to go, but because she was afraid she'd forget someone's name or repeat the same story, she knew something had to change. So one day she made a small decision. She bought a crossword puzzle book, the kind her mother used to keep on the nightstand. Then she downloaded an app to learn Spanish, something she'd always meant to do. That first week she felt the fog start to lift. There was something grounding about circling a word, something exciting about hearing a new phrase and understanding it. Slowly, she wasn't just remembering more, she was enjoying the challenge. Her brain felt alive again. Not long after, she joined a trivia night at her local expat center in the United Kingdom. She sat in the back at first, quiet, watching. But week after week, she kept showing up. Now, Susan hosts the event. This isn't just a feel-good story. It reflects something powerful researchers have long understood. The active study, a major clinical trial on aging and cognition, found that seniors who engaged in regular brain training had a 48% lower risk of memory decline. Nearly half. And the key wasn't perfection. It was practice. The act of keeping the brain curious, challenged, and engaged day after day. For Susan, the puzzle and the Spanish were tools. What really changed her was the decision to stay in the game, to keep showing up for her own mind. You don't need to become a polyglot or memorize poetry to keep your brain strong. Maybe it's trying a new route on your walk and noticing details. Maybe it's starting your mornings by recalling what you did yesterday or 3 days ago. Maybe it's dusting off that old deck of cards and teaching your grandchildren a game you loved at their age. The goal isn't to prevent aging, it's to participate in it with presence. Because memory doesn't vanish overnight, it softens, it blurs, but it can also be sharpened, strengthened, re-inspired. So if your mind has felt slower lately, start small. Start where Susan did, with one word, one puzzle, one reason to believe that your mind still matters. And if you know someone who's been retreating out of quiet fear, send this their way. Let them know they're not fading, they're just waiting to be reawakened. If the brain thrives on stimulation, the body depends on something much quieter and often underestimated: deep restorative sleep. John, 71, used to wake up feeling more tired than when he went to bed. The nights dragged. The days blurred. By mid-morning he was ready for a nap, and by afternoon he felt like he was running on empty. He didn't realize it at first, but over time the signs became clearer: sluggish thinking, irritability, poor focus, and a growing dependence on caffeine just to get through the day. The cause. It wasn't insomnia in the classic sense. It was poor sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene isn't about whether or not you brush your teeth before bed. It's about what your body and mind experience in the hours leading up to sleep and whether those patterns help or hinder your natural rhythms. For John, change began at 9 p.m. He set a cutoff for coffee at 2 in the afternoon. At 9, he dimmed the lights in the house, signaling to his brain that evening had begun. He swapped TV for a book. He put his phone in another room. And he started sipping chamomile tea instead of snacking out of boredom. Within a week, things shifted. He woke up clear, calm, energized, not bouncing off the walls but balanced, ready. That's what quality sleep does, not just quantity but deep, uninterrupted sleep. Studies show that older adults who get 7 to 8 hours of restful sleep each night have a significantly lower risk of heart disease, depression, obesity, diabetes, and cognitive decline. It's not just about feeling rested, it's about allowing the brain and body to do their most important work: repair. While we sleep, the brain clears out toxins, muscles repair, hormones rebalance. Even the immune system strengthens. Without this nightly reset, no amount of vitamins or workouts can make up for what's being lost. And yet, millions of seniors struggle with sleep. Sometimes it's pain. Sometimes it's bathroom trips. Often it's just decades of habit watching TV until the brain is overstimulated, or staying on a phone until the glow of blue light tricks the mind into staying alert. But the good news is this: sleep patterns can improve at any age. You don't need to overhaul your life, you just need a routine your brain can trust. For John, that routine began with intention. Not restriction, not pills. Just giving his body the conditions it needed to do what it was designed to do. So ask yourself, when do your lights dim? What do you do in the final hour before bed? What's in your cup, caffeine or calm? Try making your bedroom a true place of rest: cool, dark, quiet. Set a consistent bedtime. Skip the news before bed. Pick up a novel or play calming music. Let your body know it's time to unwind, not with exhaustion, but with rhythm. Because better sleep doesn't just make you feel better. It heals you. And healing is what aging well is all about. So what do these 5 abilities really tell us? Getting up from the floor, eating with joy and balance, sharing coffee and conversation, keeping your brain curious, sleeping like it's sacred. They're not extraordinary. They're not out of reach. They are simple reflections of a body and mind still willing to grow. These stories of Jane, Maria, Tom, Susan, and John show us that aging isn't a quiet fading. It's a chance to deepen everything that matters: strength, joy, curiosity, connection, rest. So maybe today is your moment, not to change everything, but to choose one small step. Reclaim your routine, rebuild your rhythm, remind your body and your spirit that you're still here, still growing. And if this message meant something to you, pass it along to a friend, a parent, or a neighbor who may need this quiet encouragement. Thanks for spending your time with us today. Until next time, stay well, and we'll see you in the next video.